Coming up on Verse Chorus Verse, let's tackle one of the big ones, shall we? That's next. Hi, everybody. I am DL, and I'm doing well. We're going to talk some Radiohead tonight, so I hope you're strapped in and ready. Yes, that's right. We're covering them. We're doing it. I didn't really know how I was going to approach Radiohead in this pod, knowing that I was going to have to. So I thought about it for a couple years and decided that I was just going to do it myself. For multiple reasons. Number one, it's just not one of those bands that, we love Evil and we love Rachel, but this can't be one of those things where we have somebody on that is annoyed by them or doesn't like them. It just doesn't work like that. Now, grain of salt, because there is going to be one. You know what? I'm so fucking excited. It's like, it's like I'm on the date with the hottest woman that I've ever been on a date with, and I'm a little flustered. How are you? Are you good? Great. Hey, it's a Friday night. I'm feeling good. Been hanging out with the fam a little bit. Long week, so enjoying the Friday and enjoying the pod. Really enjoying the pod. Things are starting to I'm getting a little clarity here. That wasn't supposed to be gross. It's not meant to be gross. Things are starting to make sense a little bit. Things have gotten a little bit smoother, a little bit easier. I'm starting to figure out how to edit and it still be clean and sound okay and work smoothly as an episode. One of the things I'm a little bummed about at this point that's not going to work anymore for good and bad reasons is I can't really mix in songs. I don't have the time to fight for song rights anymore. I used to. So the first 2 years of this podcast, I just got to say that DL, he was a fucking animal. He did whatever he had to do. And if that meant chasing down labels for 50 emails to get the rights for 10 seconds to a song, he did it. He was that man. I'm not that guy anymore. So that mixed with the fact that we are starting to have a bigger pull and have a little more to do, for better or for worse, with Spotify, I'm not going to be able to cut the clips as much. The only way that it works with Spotify is if you pause your pod and play a full song. I'm not doing that. We don't want that, right? When I'm talking Radiohead, do you want me to say, and then just plays? And actually, this is a legit question. I shouldn't just write this off just because I wouldn't want this. Maybe you would. Let me know. Email me. contact@versechorusverse.com. Send me an email. Tell me what you think about anything. VerseChorusVerse.com website. VerseChorusVerse.com Riverside too. We've got 2 websites now. Through Riverside is one of them. I'm doing a really good job of this. Just DM me on Spotify. Psych. Just DM me on Instagram. I know a lot of you aren't on Instagram. Go to Instagram. You can see our stuff. We have some cool album pictures. We do the leads to the episodes. You would actually kind of like it on our Spotify. Maybe don't go to anybody else's, but our Spotify is great. Check it out. Anyway, my question, one of the options that we can do on episodes here is I can talk about Radiohead and discuss Pablo Honey and get into Creep, and then all of a sudden we play Creep, which that's insane. So I listen to music while we're potting because I'm a fucking, I'm a man with a heart and 2 ears. Creep just started playing. That's crazy. Anyway, it's meant to be. Radiohead is just meant to be, ladies and gentlemen. I would not want that. And it annoys me when I looked at other podcasts on Spotify and saw that they have that option of just playing a whole song. Not into it. If you are, let me know. That is something we can do. We can talk about a song like Creep for 5 minutes and then play Creep. I just don't like, the song. You can go listen to it if you want. I just don't see that being a thing. But let me know if I'm wrong. I might be wrong. Anywho, point being, I can't just play random clips because we do now run the risk of just getting our shit pulled. And I'll say it's a good thing. We are close to getting to where we are making we are on the cusp of making enough to where we can kind of break even. Where the finale, we usually try to do something cool like every other year. A lot of times we just go to, I'm from Boise, Rachel's from Boise, Idaho, if you don't know, and Evil lives there. So every other year we go there and check it out, but I'm trying every other year to go somewhere else. Just a finale, just, go out. Last year we went to NOLA, we saw Queens of the Stone Age, it wasn't bad. And long story short, I just kind of want to break even on stuff like that. I want to be able to have a little bit of fun at your expense. And what I mean by your expense, because you could know, you see in front of you, we still don't have any sort of give us money isms in our pod. Still, honestly, now that we are 100% on Spotify, sorry, 100 fucking A. I've had a couple drinks tonight. I might be a little buzzed. I might have been a little nervous to talk about Radiohead on a fucking podcast. We'll talk about that. Duh, though. Anyway, we are 100% Riverside now and putting our trust in Riverside. Riverside has really done an amazing job over the last few months. If you want to work any sort of if you're thinking about podcasting, I'm going to say Riverside's the way to go. Their AI editing really helps you out, really cuts things down as far as time. They also have a good relationship with a lot of the big, iTunes and Spotify, and we got Spotify Video now, which pumped us up pretty quick. We're close to breaking even. We're close to getting to where we can have a good solid year and break even, which would be nice. Not needed. One of the wonderful, wonderful things that happened when I essentially quit for 3 months is ever since then, I have just straight up loved the pod. There has never been a second where I wondered, why the hell am I still doing this? Not 1 second. I love that. And there are some certain things that have to do with that. One thing that I do want to address that I have already addressed, but it feels like it's never enough because I keep getting asked. Yes, we are going to have people on again. We are going to have guests. We're going to have listener guests. We're going to have independent artists. One of the wonderful things about this podcast is I actually have grown relationships with, not big artists, but names, but also independent artists that's my bread and butter. That's what makes me happy. Is you people in your garages making music. You are the fucking people. You know it. You're rad. You just love music. You don't give a shit how much money you're pouring into it, who's going to listen to it. You're going to come out with your album and it's for you. And when you die, your kids get it and bam, it's perfection. It's beautiful. That's what I'm into. But we will do it. We've had issues with that. We have. One of them was a really big issue. I had somebody on that ended up it's not as easy as you think, and it's not as safe as you think. I'll put it that way. So it's those sort of things that you would only deal with if you were a podcast where you're making real fucking bank. If the Ringer wants to bring us on and Spotify wants to bring us on, then yes, I'll deal with all that shit. I'll do all the big interviews. Everything that you want us to do, we'll do. Things like that will come. They're not gonna come as much as I did it in the first and second season. What it seems like, and I'm just gonna keep saying it until you tell me it's not true. It seems like we're okay with that. It seems like you enjoy the family of Rachel, Evil, and DL, and you, and that's all we need, right? But still, trying to get back into the championing the indie artists. So keep sending me your music. I promise you, I will start talking about it, bringing stuff on here and things like that. You've noticed, you listeners, you regulars have noticed big changes over the last year in the pod. Not so much between us as people, but simple things, intros, outros, what we do in the middle as far as cuts and music and breaks and things like that. I have to get a feel for the Riverside, Spotify connection thing, which I think I do have a grasp on. Once I'm really comfortable and I feel that the quality of the pod is back to great, we're good to go. I think I'm like fucking 15 minutes. Am I procrastinating because I'm scared of Radiohead? Look, who wouldn't be scared to cover fucking Radiohead? How many of you listening know so much more than me about Radiohead? How many of you out there could play fucking Greenwood's parts 10 times better than I could? How many of you know? How many of you have studied more than me the pedal boards? You know, it is one of those bands. It's one of those intimidating bands. It's one that you take one look on Reddit. It's fuck me. I am not worthy. And that's not even touching the fact that you put on one of their albums and you feel the same way. But fuck it. We're verse, chorus, verse. I got some drinks in me. I know music. I've played music for a long time. I've been a Radiohead fan for a long time. I can pump this shit. Look, we could go toe to toe, right? Let's talk some Radiohead. That's right. And this is not the only time we're doing it. You see the 2 albums behind me, right? That's not a coincidence. It's their first 2 albums. You're damn right. We're talking more Radiohead this year. We've got this episode and we've got others. I think 6 total. So this is the way the Radiohead breakdown this year is going to work. Today, I am talking Pablo Honey and Benz, a little bit of how they started, etc. And then we will move on from that to OK Computer, which is the only time that I am involving Rachel and Evil. Yes, that's right. I went for the easy one. DL's 10 out of 10 is going to be OK Computer with Rachel and Evil. And I don't know, what do we do at that point? What if one of them gives OK Computer a 6 out of 10? Is it a mandatory firing? I mean, I don't think either of them listen to this. I know Rachel doesn't. Evil might, at least at times. He's a quality. He cares about the quality of the pod. I don't know though. Do we have to let them go if they don't like OK Computer? But I am all, and then other than that, I'm gonna pretty much discography them front to back. So we are going to touch on Kid A and Amnesiac. We are going to touch on King of Limbs, In Rainbow, everything. We're going to touch on everything. And I've got takes and I've got love. It's a duh sort of thing, but I think my biggest not breakthrough. I've become such a moron in my old age. My biggest takeaway from studying Radiohead so far is, as much as I've always known I was a Radiohead fan, I think I underestimated how much I just absolutely love this band so very much. This is a lot of times when you do something like this. When we do something like this in a season, we cover 1994 for a full season, or we do something like that, you just feel beaten down towards the end. It's just like, enough. Can I just change? No, not with Radiohead. Now I noticed that maybe my moods are suddenly randomly on days kind of a little more depressed. What can I say? It is a thing that happens. But that's one of my favorite things about Radiohead, which I think I'll touch on a lot here. And I think Tom York has talked a lot about. It's fucking K. People get sad. Why is that such a bad thing? People get depressed. Why is that such a bad thing? It's okay. Sometimes lean into it. See what happens. Feel the feel. I just really want to cover this all with Evil. Before we get to Radiohead talk, we've got to go to the most important part of the night. What am I drinking? Well, as I said, I've had a couple. I'm not going to go nuts, but it's my first Radiohead episode, so I kind of have to do something special. I've talked about this on the pod. I don't remember what episode it would have been before this, I hope. But my favorite current whiskey besides Eagle Rare, which, I don't like to be the follower. I don't. But when people are right, they're right. And I had Eagle Rare before in the past, but Evil never shuts up about it. And I was rubbing it in his face that I could just buy it at my grocery store in Washington. And then I tasted it. It's probably the best bourbon I'll ever have. But Redwood Empire Grizzly Bear straight bourbon whiskey. It's out of Northern Cali. It is amazing. It is so good. I tasted it for the first time a couple weeks ago. I got this bottle. Actually, coworkers got me this spot. My sales team, who I love so much, got me this. They got me like every year they get me like a 3-month bourbon membership thing. And that's one of them. And that is by far the best one that I've gotten so far. It's so good. And I'm drinking it out of my Sazerac house. Can you see that? My Sazerac house snifter, which I got in NOLA with Evil and Rachel, which was a very special time. Same day we went and saw Queens of the Stone Age. It's just so damn good. Out of my special glass, just, Radiohead's gonna bring it out of me. This is important to me. This is important to me, guys and gals. I fucking love Radiohead. And you can say what you want about Radiohead fans. Are we elitist? Maybe. Do we think we're better than other people? Maybe. Are we? Maybe. Let's talk some Radiohead. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. I just want to talk Radiohead. Tom York, Jonny Greenwood, Ed O'Brien, Colin, the other brother, and Philip Selway. Not technically not the other brother. He was the first brother. On a Friday was their first name. Glad they changed that. I don't know which ones. I know Tom did. I think maybe all of them or all but one. Grew up in the Oxford, Cambridge area, which is one thing that they've always combated along with their sound. Do we get that out of the way right now? Look, is Radiohead trying to be too intelligent? Are they upper middle class kids that didn't have to work for it? Is it I understand all of the gripes that people have about Radiohead. I think they're all wrong. I think talent is talent. And when you are one of the better bands of the last 100 years, people need to shut the fuck up and be okay with your stuff. That is how I feel. This is a band that lineup I read, that's the lineup forever. That's them, everybody. We talk about this every time on the pod. When there's no band turnover, your band is immaculate. It's good shit, okay? It's the best of the shit. It means that they've had 40 years to work on this with each other. It's through thick and thin. Tom York, born with his eye closed and paralyzed and completely shut because of a muscle function, and they tried to fix it and it didn't get fixed right. And so he had this permanently hanging eyelid, which meant that he was bullied to shit at as a kid, and which meant at 8 years old, he was like, I'm going to be a fucking rock star. Fuck these motherfuckers. And it happened. Who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love stories like that? I've always felt like Radiohead is one of those bands that when they came on in the 90s, there was this really funny juxtaposition of it was really, really, the coolest thing in the world was to be a rock star, but the least cool thing in the world was to want to be famous. So there was this really weird avenue of these Lane Staleys, that's him right there, these Kurt Cobains, these Tom Yorks that had this very blasé, fuck corporate magazines, I don't care. When as you get older, you realize those dudes were working the system. They wanted to be famous so badly. And Tom York was one of them. At 8 years old, he said, I was going to be a rock star. And it happened. He started a punk band with Colin Greenwood on bass, which his brother obviously would end up being the guitar. But we know this, right? His brother, it's funny because Jonny Greenwood, the guitar player, he was the last one to join, I think, and he had to like beg because he was younger, kind of like that Tom York being that John Lennon thing. Like, I don't know if I want the younger, the Harrison and sort of stuff, which there are just so many comparisons to the Beatles with Radiohead, but I digress on that. It's just funny because Jonny is the genius in the band. They're all brilliant, but Jonny's that genius. Jonny's the one that whatever that thing about Lennon, I'll pick up a tuba and I'll fucking give you Mozart. You know what I mean? As fans, how do we feel about this middle upper class Cambridge over intelligent group that turned down U2's record label offered them a contract while they were in high school and they turned it down? This entire band of 5 turned it down to go to college. They universally said no. Could you imagine that happening for anybody else? Could you imagine that? And that's twofold, because scruples you must have to agree as 5 people to say, nope, we're not doing it. We feel like it's going to come later. We really want to go to college. Uni. Sorry, Brits, uni. Also, the twofold is this. This is consistent with the thing that I think people have against Radiohead. I'm not saying it's right, but it's there. And that is that the good bands are grasping for anything. They're poor. They're living out of vans. They get offered a contract in fucking high school. They have to take it because they don't have a penny to their name, and they will starve to death if they don't. These guys were able to say, well, we'll just go to university and see what happens. That's most bands that end up big. They don't get to do stuff like that. Just playing devil's advocate, I don't feel like that about them. I don't think, it's not like, oh, they were blasé and they didn't put in their hours. These guys they were at university, they were putting in their hours. They were practicing together. They were going home to practice on weekends. I mean, it's so stupid to even, like, go listen to their music. Yeah, they were practicing quite a bit. You know what I mean? But I also get the Radiohead, the eye-rolly, over-intellectual stuff. So I think that's my listener question of the episode, is where do you stand on Radiohead? Are they deservingly brilliant? Are they one of the better bands of our generation? Or are they an over-intelligent, eye-rolly band? Which one to you are they? And why, if you don't think they're great, are you wrong? There's my question to you. They were growing up in where they grew up. It was obvious what their influences were going to be. They were very, very into the Smiths, Elvis Costello, Pixies, which, any band that came out at that time, your Nirvanas, your Radioheads, the soft, loud, soft thing. I mean, all of them fucking worship the Pixies. The only other thing that I think was great about Radiohead coming in was that their look wasn't traditional, like a little bit kind of for Brits, but they kind of looked like aliens, man. I mean, they had Whoozy Whatsits is a fucking handsome dude. Kind of speaking of Smiths, kind of a Morrissey looking motherfucker. But, Tom York is Tom York, who kind of, I think he would have been seen as more attractive later on. This is a weird thing for me to be talking about, but here I am talking about it. So anyway, 1992 comes around. Radiohead comes out with Pablo Honey. 42 minutes and 11 seconds off a Parlophone through Capitol. American producers, just FYI, just putting that out there. Look, Pablo Honey, earlier stuff, I mean, how do we feel about it? It's safer, right? It's far more U2 and it's like Gin Blossoms, honestly, than it is a Radiohead album. And that's okay. In fact, I think it worked as a great gateway drug. Well, which probably for them and for us, right? Like for them, you can hear, we'll talk about some songs that you can hear where they would go into the bends, but you also hear their influences, and I think as a society, as a group of fans that were going to become Radiohead people, we needed that. We needed that early 90s Brit, the open gin blossomy guitar feel. It sounds like a guy in Tom York that saw Brian May when he was 8 years old and said that. And then he got to the 90s where all these influences are coming in, and Pablo Honey is born. And Pablo Honey it is that. It is, you listen to that and you tell me that is not the most Brit early 90s album sound. It's all right there. Fun fact, they got the name Pablo Honey. I learned I knew a lot of this already, but there were a couple things that I learned studying. One of which was that Pablo Honey was named after a skit in a Jerky Boys album. They were Jerky Boys fans. So this is the other thing is Radiohead has this reputation for taking themselves like way too seriously. I don't think that's true. I really don't. I think that their music is dark and depressing and makes you feel your feels. But as far as a band that's, they aren't fucking we aren't comparing them to an early 2000s metal emo group. Like, this isn't a My Chemical Romance sort of thing. This is, well, actually, that's kind of a good comp because I don't think they take themselves that seriously either. Who am I? One of those bands that has song titles that are poems. I don't think Radiohead is like that. I really don't. I think they're just fucking amazing songwriters and amazing instrumentalists that really know what they're doing. It's just Pablo Honey, Jerky Boys. That's so Radiohead, not Radiohead at the same time. So Pablo Honey comes out and it has this song called Creep on it. I don't know if you've heard it. Creep. It's called Creep. I'll play it right now. Just kidding. I'm not. Unless you want me to. Should I play Creep right now? That's the question for you as pod listeners. You veterans of the verse chorus verse world. Do you want Creep to play right now as you're at your work or driving to work or on your morning jog or whatever? Or is that dumb because you could just go play it? Creep. Creep is this, I don't know, if you haven't heard it, it's this fairly sullen, Jeff Buckley hallelujah chord progression type of thing with these I don't belong here lyrics, going along with the fifth minor Jeff Buckley. I'm going to talk about Jeff Buckley later and how we'll talk about Jeff Buckley later. Those chord progressions don't traditionally belong in songs like Creep. They don't. That's what makes Creep. There are certain obvious things that make Creep something different than anybody had ever done. Something that wakes you up like fucking smelling salts. And they're obvious and you know them, and we will talk about them later in my awards and categories because I am doing awards and categories for these albums because I'm not a fucking animal. I mean, God. But what builds Creep and makes Creep and the complexities of the surprising complexities of structure that is in Creep. Because when you think of Creep, you just think, it's just a ballad. It's a ballad, but go and listen to the chord progressions and listen to what York is doing with his vocals compared to what the guitar is doing. It's not, it's complex. And it is kind of a look into things to come. And I know how Radiohead felt about Creep, but I think retrospectively that's terribly wrong. One of the things that I thought was, so, I mean, okay, they probably grew back into it, but we all know this. I shouldn't say that. That's such a stupid thing to say, DL. They grew to hate Creep quickly because it outgrew them. Creep, I think that they were terrified that they were a one-hit wonder. When they recorded Creep for Pablo Honey, they didn't even think, they were like, this is just they hadn't written it with the other songs. It was kind of a late entry sort of thing. And they played it in the studio and they were like, producers were like, yeah, we're putting it on the album, guys. They didn't even really think anything of it. And I think that they were so terrified of how big Creep got because of, the fear of being a one-hit wonder that they hated it. That's why they hated it. But anyway, one of the things that I actually do, and I've never thought of this, but it is a bewildering thing to think of. And I'm sure there are so many bands that have this, but York was talking about the song Creep, and he said that it got so big that it felt like it wasn't even theirs anymore. That it felt, when they were playing it, it felt like they were playing a cover. I've never thought of it like that, but I can totally see that. I could totally see a song that I wrote getting so big that that you walk into a bar and you know that 70% of the people in there could sing it and will sing it. And suddenly it's just not it grows alive. It's not yours anymore. You know what I mean? That's it. It's a really weird thing to think of. Creep is Creep. It's one of, those songs that you've been around so long and they are such a part of you that you take for granted really how good they are until somebody asks you, hey, sit down and think about Pablo Honey. And then you're like, shit, yeah, Creep is one of the more important songs I've ever heard, right? They really did. They wanted to be taken seriously. They wanted to be appreciated as artists. They're also fucking, they're speaking to what I was saying earlier about them wanting to be famous. They played the MTV fucking Beach House. Radiohead played the MTV Beach House. We remember that, right? Do we remember Tom York jumping in the pool? I remember I think this is just because because this is just how I think, because I'm always thinking about what are people going to think of you. But my instant thought of that was there's no way that Tom York is going to look cool, A, swimming, and B, getting back out of a pool. Just that's fucking hilarious. Think about that. That's funny shit, right? This Pablo Honey was not well received when it came out. Fox gave it a 5 out of 10. New York Times basically called it like a fucking Smiths wannabe album. It wasn't well received. In fact, ironically, one of the things that was kind of a big deal for this song, Pablo Honey is Pablo Honey because of Creep. Like Creep is the reason we have Radiohead. It is. It's a weird thing to think of, but it's true. Anyway, one of the things that was a big deal for Creep, it honestly was that at the time, Beavis and Butt-Head was a big deal. And Beavis and Butt-Head did Creep. And in Beavis and Butt-Head, and it's such a good Beavis and Butt-Head song, because basically, I don't even remember which one is which, but one of them is like, what the fuck is this song? And the other one is like, no, just wait. And the other one is like, this is dude, change it. This is think of Beavis and Butt-Head doing it way better than I'm doing it. And the other one being like, wait. And then all of a sudden the chug, and then they both are like, yes, fucking, That was a big deal. It's so dumb, but it was. People kind of decided that it rocked, which it did. It did rock. And I don't know. Pablo Honey it's a good album. It's a Brit rock album from the early 90s. Tom York didn't like it, but Tom York he's an artist, he thinks it's shit. He also was very insulted that it wasn't received well. It's dealing with all of it. It's fucking Casablancas from the Strokes. It's all of the fucking artists, man. It's like, they hate their own stuff, and they don't understand why other people don't like it. Like, they can't read a critic thing without flipping out. It's the weird, just artists are weird. I've been an artist. Weird, right? It's also just one of those albums where the non-singles don't kick. They just don't. And that's kind of Radiohead's thing. Radiohead's thing is not singles. Radiohead's thing is, I'm going to come out with an album that's going to kick you in the teeth for 45 minutes. That's going to make you look at life differently, but because of what I am playing. They're album people. They're an album band. And Pablo Honey it's a Britpop album. It's a really, really good Britpop album. But it's a Britpop album. I mean, do you agree with that? Let me know. Let's do some David Crosby Meh Award. This is for those of you, I'm sure there's some new listeners listening now because it's a Radiohead episode and it's one of those bands. It's like when we do the Beatles, suddenly there's twice the amount of listeners. I'm sure the same thing's gonna happen for Radiohead. David Crosby Met Award for bad reviews. I pick an Amazon review, and I say it because Amazon has some really great people on it. 1 out of 5 stars in 2015. Weird year to cover a 1993 album. And here is the review from Charles. A tad worse than Hootie and the Blowfish, like masturbating yourself to sleep. Aw, that's cute. Okay, awards and categories for Pablo Honey. The 70 million Jackson fans can't be wrong. This award is, what do you think? Sorry, Jesus Christ. What about this album are you on a small island for? What do you maybe feel like you don't agree with the masses on it? I don't think anything. I don't think I'm alone. I think this is more of I said it. I think this is more of a U2 Gin Blossoms album than it is a Radiohead album. And that's why it's not a favorite for me. And the only other, I don't know, maybe that I'm also not sick of Creep. I could listen to Creep right now and be super into it. But I don't know. I don't think I'm alone on that. I could be though, because it's songs that are overplayed. That's way up there. The Ozzy Osbourne Bat-Head Award. This is a moment in this time frame for the band that solidified how great the album was. How about the fact that Creep, so I'm going to keep talking about it and I said it before, Creep is this album. It is. And not saying that like anyone can play guitar, fucking great song. There's other great songs in here. I'll talk about them later, but come on. Creep was recorded in one take. Yeah. It also wasn't huge right away. It took people getting behind it. In fact, one of the first places this was big in was Israel. In Israel, there was like one DJ that started playing it and it got really big. And then Berkeley, it was, this was back in the day. But here's my favorite. This was 1993, Arsenio Hall. Big deal. Arsenio Hall is given this demo and basically his team sits on it for months. They eventually, Arsenio, I don't remember if the story was that he found it in the office, because Arsenio used to just take tapes on his drives and pop them in because he was a band guy. For those of you that remember Arsenio Hall, he had bands on it. He had good artists on, and he found the demo that had Creep on it and put the album that had Creep on it and played Creep. And he immediately called his producers and was like, why the fuck haven't we had these guys on immediately? Like, get these guys on now. Arsenio knew that Creep was the banger, which I just think that's really awesome. It's just crazy that they really didn't want it on their album. They thought it was a Scott Walker ripoff. It's just, God, it's a good sliding doors, right? Like, what would have happened if they would have not put that on Pablo Honey? I don't know. The DMX Award, what makes this band or artist or project unique? I think what makes this album unique is that it's Radiohead, and this album isn't that unique. This album sounds like a lot of the stuff that was coming out at that time. So I feel like I'm shitting on Pablo Honey. I'm not trying to shit on Pablo Honey. I like Pablo Honey. It's kind of like, I don't know, you're talking about your favorite band's 10 albums. You have to eventually talk about one of the couple least favorite ones, right? The Mark Lanigan True Rockstar Award. What makes these guys rock stars? Well, they hated their fucking biggest single. Doesn't get much more rock star than that, right? Overrated, underrated, and properly that too. Overrated, underrated, properly later. I could talk properly rated. This was underrated. This didn't do well when it came out. It didn't. It got well progressively after, but when this came out, this wasn't a big deal at all. Like, Creep made it become a big deal. It wasn't though. Currently, I actually think it's a little bit overrated. This was part of the whole retrospective critic, my God, it's so amazing thing. So it's kind of like a overcorrection. Didn't get enough hype when it came out, and now it's kind of like, just because it's Radiohead, it's viewed as this masterpiece that I don't really think it is. I don't. Influences and influencees, I think I already said every single one of them. U2, Pixies, The Smiths, just everybody that you can imagine. Never mind the Bullocks Award. Is this the band's best album? Here's another listener question. I'll ask that. Is there anyone out there that thinks that Pablo Honey is Radiohead's best album? If so, I would like to hear from you, and I would like to hear your reasoning. That's not snark. I really do. I want to hear you tell me why it's their best album, because that's crazy to me. But hey, I'm not saying it's not possible. The John Paul Jones Award, if you could replace or add one musician on this album. I don't know if I'm going to do some of these awards for every single album, because you just don't ask that on a Radiohead album. We all know that Nigel Godrich joined on the next album as an executive producer. He wasn't actually like engineering or producing. He was just helping out on like a song or two. But I'll say Nigel. The real answer is you just don't mess with any of this. You just don't, like I said before, Pablo Honey's a gateway drug. Don't mess with the gateway drug. You got to give him the pot to get him to the crack, and I feel strongly about that. Does anybody have any pot or crack? Cheers. Dude, seriously. You have one song on this album to show a friend and get them into this. I think what I would say on this is, you know what I would say for Pablo Honey on this is You, the opening track. I think that You is one of the big, this is a Radiohead song. You know, they have that kind of, that weird guitar tone, not weird, that pretty guitar tone at the beginning, but then you're going to get your augmented chords. You're going to get Tom, and then you get Jonny doing the wah, 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 wah. That's Radiohead, baby. Get into it. I think that's the song I would give the John Popper Award for Best Hook. I'm sorry that I'm going to be so fucking boring, but I mean, come on. Is that not one of the coolest things that's been in a song? The answer is yes. The John Prine Best Lyric Award. So I'm realizing as I go through these that it's so lame, but you know, I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? People don't understand how much people in the early 90s needed to fucking hear that shit. You know, like, good God, people needed that so bad. I was like 10 years old when that came out, but am I wrong? I'm not wrong. I don't care if it hurts. I want to have control. I want a perfect body. I want a perfect... Though that still stands up today. Wonderfully, might I add. I wish I was special. You're so fucking special. That's the thing. I know I keep talking about Creep, but I'm not wrong. I'm not. I'm sorry that they came out, that it is a good album where every song is good with a couple of greats and then one of the best songs ever written. Yes, I'm going to talk, and I promise you that all of my Radiohead coverage is not going to be like this. I promise you that you're going to get some curveballs. I promise you that I have some favorites that you're going to be surprised by. I promise you that I'm a B-sides Radiohead guy. Just give me some time. Let's get past Creep. Let's get past Pablo Honey. And we'll go there. The Eddie Van Halen Award, that minor rip in Anyone Can Play Guitar, that's a small glimpse into what Jonny was going to be about for his career in all the beautiful ways. And you guitar-loving motherfuckers know exactly what I'm talking about. You know that wrenchy, bluesy, sloppy, just a little bit late on the one. Fucking Jonny, am I right? The Surfer Rosa Award. I don't think Radiohead really applies much to any of the Surfer Rosa stuff. The question for Surfer Rosa is how is the album structured? Is it typical? You know, is track 3 the big track? Is 1 the starter? Is it the rock stuff at the beginning and the weird stuff at the end? Radiohead has never played by those rules, with the exception of one thing, and that is that their opening tracks do tend to rock socks. And You rock socks. That's the only thing. You got You and you got Creek. I don't know. I feel I'm getting down to the end of these awards and I haven't talked about a lot of these songs. And I know, here's the thing. Look, you and me, we're Radiohead buds, right? Like, we know Radiohead. Like, do you want to talk about Anyone Can Play Guitar? Do you want to talk about Prove Yourself or I Can't? You want to talk about Stop Whispering? But you know, like, I know anyone can play guitar. I feel like I'm not doing Pablo Honey justice. Maybe that's my point. Yeah, I told you, I'm nervous about this Radiohead shit, man. I am. Speaking of Stop Whispering, the Time of Your Life Award. Stop Whispering kind of symbolizes where the Radiohead stops on this album. That song is so U2. It's so not Radiohead to me. That's one of the few Radiohead songs that I'm not a fan of. And I mean that. I mean, like, however many albums they've come out with, however many songs, there are not many of their songs that I just flat out don't like. I can probably count them on one hand. And Stop Whispering is one of them. Stop Whispering might be on the top there. Okay. But now we get to my 3 favorite songs. And now here's the thing. To talk a little more about Pablo Honey. I'm looking over here because I have my playlist is here. I Can't is cool. I love that stuff there. I actually really like Vegetable. Vegetable's really good. But my top 3 are You, the starting track. You know, I just talked about what I like about it, mainly Jonny. My second favorite song on this, though, Ripcord. Ripcord is a great Radiohead song, okay? And I don't know how many of you are comfortably familiar with it, but get comfortably familiar with it because it's really, really fucking good. The beginning, that kind of, the other end of the drumstick, snare, clack with the comfortable guitar and the distortion changing like really fastly. It's really, really, really good stuff into that kind of end of verse, that great stuff. So what's funny is everything that I've talked about Creep, I really, really didn't want it to be my favorite on this for my 3 favorites. I wanted to put Anyone Can Play Guitar on there because I do love that song. It's Creep. Like it didn't take me long to just not fucking fool myself on this one. You know what I mean? Creep's the best song on the album. Who won the album? I'm going to say Grunge Kids. I'm going to say, people look past the early 90s basic feel of this one, but it's there. And it's one of the many, many great, I'm going to use the word for the 18th time, gateways. And that's Pablo Honey. Tell me how wrong I am. Tell me how good of a song Anyone Can Play Guitar is. And I'll listen. I think Pablo Honey is there are very, very, very few bands that with their first album can establish exactly who they are. Off the top of your head, who you naming? The Blue Album, Core, Stone Temple Pilots, Bleach. Like that's not you know what I mean? And these guys were still figuring out who they were. And that's why I give this album it feels so gross to say this, but I'm giving this album a 7 out of 10. Look, you guys know my theme from last year. There's nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned 7 out of 10. There's nothing wrong with a gateway drug leading you into a album that was not that. And I have a lot to say about the next album. I'll be right back. Everybody, should we talk about the Bends? Should we talk about 1995's The Bends by the band Radiohead? 48 minutes long, also off of Parlophone and Capitol. This time with Nigel Godrich, but really John Leckie was the guy. According to some reports, Radiohead's record company EMI gave them 6 months to get sorted or be dropped. This was after the success of Pablo Honey. They had a hard time with it. Imagine that. Look, I'm one of the prime culprits of just being annoyed by famous artists having trouble with being famous and getting money. But I get it. I get artists that don't. I just get it. I get it. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, they were having, particularly York, major mental issues. And they weren't following up their massive Creep success, Pablo Honey's success, fast enough for EMI. So EMI gave him 6 months to quote unquote get sorted. By that, they mean new albums, lots more touring, or get dropped. EMI's A&R head Keith Wozencroft denied this, saying experimental rock music was getting played and had commercial potential, but I don't think that's true because EMI dropped them. EMI dropped a group that had just come out with a huge. Now, also remember that in the early 90s, this shit was going off like fucking. It didn't, record labels were signing everybody and dropping everybody because they were going to get paid. One of the bands were going to hit and sell a shit ton. And they didn't have time to waste on artists that were in their feelings and needed a break for this or actually felt things. They chose Leckie to do the producing. I think Nigel did. I already said this. Sorry. I think Nigel did like one song. Leckie did the real shit. He didn't even like the. Maybe this is kind of the thing. He wasn't a huge Pablo Honey fan. He didn't really he thought it sounded like a lot of the other shit out. He did hear potential. And then he was sent the songs that they were working on after, and bam, he was like, okay, now we got something here. We get to the Bends, and thanks to Pablo Honey, they get a lot more independency as far as, artistry and as far as the whole, like, Pink Floyd. They've been asked a lot about their influences, and a lot of people assume that Pink Floyd's a big one. They're not. Tom York actually doesn't really. He has said that not in like a dickish way, but he doesn't really like Pink Floyd. He just loved that they always insisted on doing whatever they wanted. They never, ever kowtowed to a label. And he loved that. And that is what he insisted on. Yes, the MTV Beach House guy. It's just crazy because they were already so big because of Creep, and they were already they were jaded before they even fucking got famous. Like, that's the thing is, look, it's Radiohead. We roll your eyes all you want. There's a reason they are able to write the music that they write. And there's a reason that this album has just absolute gold on it. There's a reason that they're able to write a song like My Iron Lung, which is about Creep. And if you go back and you listen to, if you didn't know that, if you go back and you listen to the lyrics, it's very, very obvious. You know, Radiohead, they get meta, and some people love that and some people fucking hate it. And that's the polarizing thing about Radiohead. To me, the bends is Radiohead becoming Radiohead. And I always looked at it, I'm sorry, I say things a million times. Maybe just listen to one episode of our podcast and then don't listen to anything else ever. But no, join when Evil and Rachel are in. They're a lot more interesting than me. But one of the things that I love about doing this podcast, and I hope, you know, actually, I'd want to hear from you too, as listeners, if the same thing happens to you, if you go back and you kind of study these albums, we study with us, because I have these preconceived notions in my head of the music that I've known. Look, if we can all say this, a lot of people if you're listening to this type of stuff, you're a huge music fan. All I've been doing my whole life is listening to music and playing music and performing music and writing music and stuff like that. Like, it's a big deal. I know a lot about music. I know a lot about the writing process. I know a lot about the reading process. I know a lot about theorem. I know a lot about music. I really do. But at some point, it's like any good philosopher. At some point, you start to know so much that you realize that you don't really know anything. I know that makes no sense, but I think some of you understand what I'm saying. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm asking? I hope so. Maybe. I just think that this is them coming into their own. And I didn't finish I will finish what I was saying. You knew what I was saying, I bet. Did you know what I was saying? This is turning into a real Radiohead episode. I had always thought of this album as being anything pre-OK Computer was just Radiohead being regular Brit pop. And I always knew that there was greatness in the bends and there was greatness in Pablo Honey. But one of my favorite things about this pod is that you have to go back and you have to re-listen, and it changes your ideals. I don't know if it's because you're older and you're wiser. I don't know if it's just because you're in a different mood, whatever. But I'll tell you one thing. I think the bends, I had always seen the bends as like, look, there's OK Computer. That's Radiohead. That's when they found it. That's when they figured it out. Dude, the bend, you can't sleep on the bends. Holy shit. I do still feel like they had a long way to go from the bends, but that's an absolutely fucking normal thing. That's not in a bad way at all. Songs like The Bones are still very like Pablo Honey, and maybe even trying a bit too hard, but that doesn't make it a bad song. That doesn't make it awesome. That doesn't make it a really fucking great 1995 Britpop song. And you also have, look, Just is the first real me Radiohead song. A song where all of them are rocking your face off, but also making you think and a little bit uncomfortable. And Jonny is jawing you. So apparently Jonny and York were having a competition basically about who can write a good song, not just a song, but who can write a good song that has the most chords in it. Well, little did Tom York know that Johnny had been super obsessed with this French composer at the time. Who the fuck was it? Messier? Messier. That's a fucking hockey player. I have it written down somewhere. Maybe I'll find it. Maybe I won't. Messiaen. I was close. Messiaen. This obscure, amazing French composer who was really into the octatonic scales at the time. If you don't know take that out, put this in. If you don't know octatonic scale, it's not, you don't really have to understand. Basically, just listen to and listen to that first guitar riff. And, it's not a do, re, mi. It's not a do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. It's a do, re, mi, ma, la, la. That's octatonic shit. And that's what this French composer was super into it. And, we've talked about Harry Partch, things like that on this podcast. It's about using the notes that are in between the notes. And Johnny was super into this at the time, and he comes out with Just. And it not only does it melt our faces, but it's also so musically complex that it's disgusting. And it's what, I love the interview where Dave Grohl, where the music theory guy is talking to him. I don't even remember what song it was. Maybe it was Everlong, because we all know that Everlong is like such a unbelievably technically brilliant song. And Dave Grohl fully admits that none of that had to do with any of the writing. And I think that some of this is a little bit like that. And I'm not saying that Johnny has always been the brilliant one, but I think Radiohead as a whole, I think there's a lot more feel to it than what we're going to do is we're going to add a triad here. I don't think there's that. I think that Tom York feels the right shit. And that's how you get songs like Just and Fake Plastic Trees and Plastic Trees has always been I know that song is incredibly brilliant, and I just can't, even for a huge Radiohead guy, it's a little eye-rolly for me. It's a great song. It's just not, it's overplayed, but that's not fair. Because it's not the song's fault that it's overplayed. It's the kind of song it's not even pre-real Radiohead. It is these acoustic sappy stuff. That's fine. I don't know. There's just not, it is a great, I'm reading stuff now that I wrote that I kind of disagree with. Look, Fake Plastic Trees is a great song. It is. This is a huge deal. York at this time went and saw Jeff Buckley perform. And hearing Jeff Buckley sing was what Tom York, that's when he realized that singing in falsetto was not taking away from the power of a rock song. It could add to it. And while I am very much kind of at some point annoyed by falsetto, and yet somehow all artists that I love, Tom York, Dave Matthews, these sort of people, they love their fucking falsetto. But Buckley was the one that York said made him realize that falsetto is kind of one of the big things that he should be doing. I don't know. Fake Plastic Trees was the song where York said that's where he found himself as a writer. That's where he realized that he was probably that's the first song that he was like, oh, maybe I'm not shit. And maybe it just hit me at the wrong time. I've Fake Plastic Trees. That's my thing. I feel like Fake Plastic Trees is supposed to be one of your favorite Radiohead songs. It is just not one of mine. It's not. And that's why I feel like I'm on an apology here, and I don't really know why. I do still feel like, I already said this, they had growth to go, but it's because people grow always, continuously. And that's what they did. And I love that. And that's kind of the bends. The only other thing that he didn't treat us like he has some kind of witchcraft that only he understands. There's no mystery to it. So refreshing. It's just the songs are there, and they needed to produce them, and it came out well. It didn't. What's funny is it's a better album than Pablo Honey, no question, right? Do people disagree with that? Let me know. I don't think it's even close, but it still hasn't sold as much. I think, well, at this point, I think Pablo Honey has sold 1.5. The Ben's 1.4 mil. But Pablo Honey's was quick to the mill. Ben's took a while to catch up because of fucking creep. David Crosby Met Award for Bad Reviews, 1 out of 5 stars by A. Perry in 2004. Get a load of what this guy shits on immediately. Apparently the same one that hyped up Jimi Hendrix and Lord of the Rings, because I just don't get it. My friend has been trying so hard to get me to like these guys, forcing me to listen to all their incomprehensible albums. You might say, well, you just don't get it. Get what? I gave it a good old college try and it just wasn't there. If you want to be really hip and edgy, add a bunch of Radiohead CDs to your collection. Most Radiohead fans are not all bad. They just caved into the pressure of everyone else. Well, I don't get it, but everyone else seems to get it, so I'll buy some Radiohead so I can get laid by a chick with dirty, faded jeans. I don't dislike Radiohead because I like to be different than everyone else. I dislike them because they are truly talentless. It sounds like a guy whining to his best friend about breaking up with his girlfriend, drowned out by 12-year-olds practicing on the guitars and drums at band class. What a waste of sound. That's one of the worst examples of somebody trying to sound intelligent. What a brilliant catastrophe that review is, right? 70 million Jax fans can't be wrong. There's something in the back of my head that keeps me from just absolutely loving this album. I do feel like the Benz is like a fan favorite. Like, I do feel like if you ask a lot of Radiohead fans, this is their number 2. Tell me if I'm wrong. And coming back to Radiohead, studying for this, I like the Benz way more than I did, but it's not my number 2. It's not huge up there. And I feel like it is for a lot of people. What's love got to do with it? I'm not going to do this award. It's Radiohead. I love Radiohead. The Ozzy Osbourne Bat-Head Award. After Radio finished recording Pablo Honey, York played the co-producer Paul Corderi a demo tape of new material with the working title The Benz. Corderi was shocked to find songs were all better than Pablo Honey. The guitarist Ed O'Brien said later, after all that touring on Pablo Honey, the songs that Tom was writing were so much better over a period of a year and a half, suddenly bang. And Corderi basically just credited the Pablo Honey tour as not only, look, when you are a band that plays together every night for years and years and years, you get really fucking good. This is why you get the same lineup for 10 years. You have an impeccable band. That's just the way it works. The DMX Award, this is Radiohead to me. It's not full-fledged Radiohead, but it's Radiohead, okay? People didn't know it because of how much this album's still parallel to Britpop in 95, but this is Radiohead. You hear it everywhere. Mark Lanigan True Rockstar Award for a performance in New York City, suffered a breakdown and begged Radiohead's tour manager to book him a flight home. His bandmates persuaded him to stay. Then also there was the later, like in 95, York had a breakdown on stage and fucking passed out. And what was it? Oh yeah, NME called the incident Tommy's temper tantrum. And York said it was the most hurtful thing that anyone had ever written about him. And he refused to allow NME to interview him for 5 years. I mean, you don't get much more rock star than that. Overrated, underrated, probably rated. It's a bit underrated in its time. It was a way better, in my opinion, it was a way better album than Pablo Honey. And it wasn't treated as such because it didn't have that creep on it, which is not true. We'll get to that. And then currently properly rated because people fucking love this album now. They love it. Rightfully so. Influences and influencees. R.E.M. R.E.M. was a massive influence. They toured with them. York loved them because how do you not love R.E.M.? Evil. You're an idiot. Never mind the Boast Award. No, it's not the band's best album. And I don't think it's the second. I'm not sure if I think it's the third or the fourth. I'm sure some of you disagree. And I think once we get into the 2 through 5 of Radiohead, there's probably some pretty passionate, strong feelings there for everybody involved. John Paul Jones Award, I don't want it on this, but I'm kind of surprised that they didn't have some sort of like female Brit vocalist joining on like a Leave Me High and Dry or Fake Plastic Trees, like a PJ Harvey kind of thing. I'm just kind of surprised they didn't. Happy they didn't. Kind of surprised for a 95. It's just a very 95 thing to do. Dude, seriously, what song am I giving you? Look, I said what I said about it before, but I would give people Fake Plastic Trees. It is the dynamics of that song. You're getting Radiohead. If you don't want that song, you probably don't want Radiohead, okay? And that's the song you're getting. The John Popper Best Hook Award. Planet Telex. Is it just me or does it have a little bit of a... Go back and listen to Planet Telex. Tell me there's not a little bit of a Stone Temple Pilots vibe. Little Dean Delio in there. That guitar. Go listen to Planet Telex. That's got a little bit of fucking tiny music in there, huh? A little bit? Just go check it out. The John Prine Best Lyric Award. There's a lot of this album that is a lot more... Here's the thing. I'm not giving specific lines. You know, I could in Fake Plastic Trees and You Do It to Yourself and Don't Get No Sympathy from Falling Off the 15th Floor. That's another thing. Radiohead got this fucking this reputation, you know, oh well, you're dark music, you know, you're just wanting, what do you want? People to be okay with being depressed, committing suicide. Tom York said, like, look, people write me all the time, I'm depressed, what do you think about suicide? And he would say, like, no, you don't ever do anything like that. That's giving up. That's giving in to the shit. Don't do that. You don't, and that's part of this album. You don't get no sympathy falling out the 15th floor. I think that Radiohead is an extremely misunderstood band. Where was I? That's right. What I love about the Bends versus their next album, which we'll talk about, the Bends is very much looking inward. Everything is about the inner pain and the inner struggle and the anger and how do I combat this? Their next album is a lot more outside world. How we have no control over the things that are going to control us. The only other thing I'd say on that is listen to Street Spirit. The lyrics in Street Spirit are fucking great. Also inspired by R.E.M. Evil's an Idiot. Eddie Van Halen Award. The angry, sloppy guitar at the end of My Iron Lung. Right? That's so Radiohead and it's so dirty and it rocks. You know, you people that say that Radiohead is like softies. Okay. Like listen to the end of My Iron Lung or Chunk Chunk and or more albums we're going to talk about later. The Surfer Rosa Award. This is a full, solid, great album. There's maybe a wink link I'll talk about, but this flows. This is Radiohead. This is the beginning of their albums just flowing beautifully, which leads me to the Time of Your Life Award. This is really, really fucking hard. And what I was talking about earlier is, you know, going back to this album, thinking that it was, you know, it's good. It's Radiohead. There's amazing songs on it. I had a really hard time picking a least favorite song because they're all really good. I ended up going with Black Star. It's one of the few that doesn't really sound totally like a Radiohead song to me. There's still some other band in there. I don't know if it's U2. I don't know if it's, you know, maybe it's even just the fade in thing that fucking drives me nuts. I don't know. Let's go to the better one. Let's go to the better award and talk about the 3 best songs on the album. Apparently I like to rock people's socks off and I like to be rocked off. We'll get to that. That was kinky. My number 3 song, and it could have been a few different things, but Bulletproof, I Wish I Was. It's beautiful. It's Radiohead. It's beautiful Radiohead. My number 2, Iron Lung. That clean guitar into the dirty guitar. That ending that I was talking about. The dirtiness. The choruses where you don't know what he's saying. And everything is a little bit distorted. But it's so angry bluesy that you don't care. Just absolutely brilliant stuff. And then my number 1 song is Just. Are we surprised by that? Are we surprised by one of the best rock songs to come out of the Are we surprised by that scale that we got from Jonny? Into the Clean. It's been hanging around for days. God damn, that song's amazing. Who won the album? Smart music fans won the album, ladies and gentlemen. No idiots that gave this mediocre, rushed album reviews deserve to listen to it. We deserve to listen to it. Here's the thing. Maybe Radiohead is an elitist band. Well, we are the elite. Correct. The Bends I'm giving a 9 out of 10. And honestly, I had to think for a little bit about it being a 10 out of 10. I do think there's a couple of things on here that just, they're being held against the rest of their albums. And that's a hard fucking thing to be judged by. 9 out of 10 for the Bends. And ranking their albums so far, no big say. I mean, that's dumb. The Bends is better than Pablo Honey. 1 is the Bends, 2 is Pablo Honey. But I got to give you my top 5 favorite, not best, favorite songs so far. My number 5 is Bulletproof. I wish I was. I talked about it. There is the very, very clean, open acoustics into the beautiful harmonization, reverb harmonization into the clean Jonny parts. Hey, it's beautiful. My number 4, Street Spirit. I feel like Street Spirit is a little bit of a glimpse into what was going to happen in Kid A. And if you know me, or if you've listened to the first ever episode of Verse Chorus Verse, you know how I feel about Kid A. And later on this year, I will talk about one of the bigger mistakes that I made in the first couple of years of this podcast. I was young and I was misguided. My number 3, still on the Bends here, My Iron Lung. You get that beginning, those crazy demented pedal chords. You get Tom York doing his thing. You get the beautiful bass. And then you get the raunchy fucking Greenwood shit. I mean, come on, right? So, can you guess what my top 2 songs are? I didn't want to be a basic bitch. I have to be a basic bitch. My number 2 is Creep. Just studying for this, going back to this, it's Creep, okay? It's not the most complex of songs, but it's definitely not a simple song. And technically, it's the chords are great. And it's Creep. It's a beautiful song with a wonderful lyrics. And it just feels weird trying to explain why Creep is a good song when I'm explaining it to people that know Creep. But my favorite song so far, and honestly, it's kind of one of those I want to. So, if you don't know, we also do one Beatles album every year. Well, we cover the Beatles every year towards the end of this season. Rachel and I do. Rachel as a person that has never really studied the Beatles, and me as a Beatles obsessor. And every year we cover 1 to 2 we cover like 1 year basically, or 1 album. And of course, the very first episode we covered I Want to Hold Your Hand, which is still, I think, my top song. Just is going to be like that. It's going to be really hard to fucking beat that. Now, we all know what album's coming up and what songs are on that album. We'll have to see what happens there. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to do OK Computer with Rachel and Evil, and then I am doing an episode on Kid A and Amnesia. I think I'm doing like a 3-parter, basically. And then we talk a little bit of Hail to the Thief, and we talk some post, King of Limbs and Moonshaped Pool, and it's going to be good. No spoilers, but I'm telling you now, there is not a Radiohead album that I'm not going to gawk over. I might get a little more technical on a couple of the other ones, but I think some of you might kind of want that. We have a lot of Radiohead to talk about this year, and I'm excited for it. VerseChorusVerse.com at VerseChorusVersePod. Hey, that wasn't a thing. We love you. We love Radiohead. You do it to yourself, okay? Good night and good luck.